Happy Wednesday! Welcome to ScreenJunkies Universe. It's a great day because we have Ed Greer here.
I'm back.
It's
Yay.
Wednesday. Welcome back. We have lots of beverages. Joe Starr was parched this morning. We're taking care of him. We like to take care of the family. Dan Murrell is here. How you doing? We have our spider. What'd you say?
Family. I just hear Vin Diesel's head in my voice every time someone says family.
But then when you say it that way, I immediately want a Corona. So we're in trouble, and that's the only beverage we don't have represented here today. We are going to talk about the streaming wars. There's been a casualty, Dan, as well as the Spider-Verse. We have a review up, but there's news on sequels already before the movie's out, which is great. The show of confidence from Sony. Also, Venom, rom-comming. Let's start with YouTube. Hey, YouTube. This is via Deadline. So as you guys know, YouTube had started its premium site, the subscription service, and was making a bunch of original content, including the highly recommended Cobra Kai. Yet that still wasn't enough to get me to sign up for that subscription. And I think some other people, which leads us to, they are now not planning any more scripted series in the foreseeable future for that service. They are instead moving some of their premium content from behind the paywall and having it be supported by advertisement. Oh, cool. They have enough projects apparently to go through to 2020. This is really funny. Deadline framed this like their parent company is still considering. It's like, do you mean Google? Google is considering.
Yeah.
You know, like
Their parent company.
Their parent company.
Yeah, Google, the thing that runs our lives.
The thing that owns, like, it's not Disney that owns us at all. It's always the one that you're not thinking about. That's the true puppet master, and that is Google, ladies and gentlemen. That's the one that owns our lives. So in any event, hail to our Google masters. They do have a number of other series. They just launched Origin, On Becoming a God in Central Florida. Wayne recently picked up Pilots, Dark Cargo, and Edge of 17, which was a great film.
What's a good film?
So the point is that they said, as we look towards 2019, we'll begin, pardon me, words. As we look at 2019, we will begin making all of our YouTube originals ad-supported to meet the growing demand of a more global fan base. The next phase of our original strategy will expand the audience of our YouTube original creators and provide advertisers with incredible content that reaches the YouTube generation. So there's a lot of takeaways here.
The YouTube generation.
The YouTube generation. Yeah. And then suddenly it's just like an air guitar comes out because everybody's actually really old, and that's a very old reference.
Yes, yeah.
Extreme.
Pizza bagels, YouTube generation.
So in any event, this is interesting on a number of fronts. One, we've been talking a lot about the streaming wars and the competition for subscription services. This does look like maybe it's the one of, if not the first, casualty. Also, there's a tricky relationship with tech companies and content creation. Amazon bumped along when they first launched in terms of competing with Netflix and Hulu. Apple's been hanging around and then finally is making a play just this past year. So there's a few takeaways here, but let's first talk about the idea of YouTube returning to form in a sense of being an ad-supported space that is openly, publicly available. Thoughts, Dan Murrell?
Having danced this dance before of we're taking all of the things behind our paywall in front of a paywall supported by an advertiser, I can say...
Are you saying that they're unlocking YouTube Red?
they're unlocking YouTube Premium for everyone to see, and it's a great thing. Having gone through that, I don't feel for them because they're far richer than any of us will ever be combined.
I don't think we ever have to feel for Google.
No, but I do think that it is... We talk about this we've been talking about this now for a long time of as these more and more services come up that are offering premium content, how will everybody survive? And I think this is the first indication of a company saying, we tried this thing out, we tried this space out, it's just not working for any number of reasons. I was reading a story yesterday that quoted, of course you go anonymous once the real story starts coming out, the anonymous people start. But I was reading something that said that one of the reasons that they did it, according to somebody that worked at YouTube, was that it was changing the perception of the brand, which I think is interesting because they're right in a sense, where on the one hand, you have YouTube positioning itself as like, the tool of the people, the one thing that everyone can have access to, unless you're in a country that doesn't like it, that, you know, you can upload your own content, and it's like this very sort of populist thing. But on the other hand, they were trying to position themselves as like, but we are a professional creative studio, and we make the real actual thing,
content.
premium content that you have to unlock and pay. And those are two things that are kind of at odds. So this seems like YouTube trying to position itself in a world now where every company has a different part of it that's now saying, like, you have to pay, you have to pay, you have to pay. This is YouTube saying, like, we're the ones you don't have to pay for, and bringing everything out on front. So it's just, it's these shifting dynamics that we keep talking about.
That is, I think, the one of the most central points to any of this. And the reason that I think the tech companies are struggling, besides the fact that it's not their area. You know, Netflix was started as a content company, first with the DVDs and then into original content. And that had some bumps along the way too. But it's the brand perception. It's like with BuzzFeed, for example. BuzzFeed had a very, 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 very clear, for a long time, very, very, very successful brand identity. We do cat videos and we do quizzes and we do these silly things. And then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 years ago, they made a huge investment in trying to change that identity and hiring a bunch of really, really, really established, talented, excellent journalists. And then it was mixed together with the cat videos and the quizzes. And their hope was that they would start to get a brand identity that included intelligence. And the reason was, what they found was that when people share things on their social media, they want to share things that they believe is a reflection of them, but they really want to share things, we really want to share things that are a reflection of who we think we want to be. And because BuzzFeed was associated with stupid, people didn't want to be associated with stupid, so they didn't want to share it. So they wanted to change that perception, but it was impossible. Once the identity is so embedded, the way YouTube is, the way BuzzFeed was, you can invest and invest and invest. MTV did the same thing, hiring a bunch of great writers. You're not going to change that core identity enough. And what you're probably going to do is create confusion from the consumer. Because I like, BuzzFeed does have some amazing journalism, but it's always so weird because it's coming from BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
No offense to BuzzFeed. You guys are very good at what you do with the cats.
The cats! Well, you know, the shift that YouTube tried to make kind of makes sense to me in a way, because it's like, again, they were the home for, here's a bunch of videos of animals and people getting hit in the nuts.
Sure.
And honest trailers.
And honest trailers.
And reviews by Dan and Roth.
Yes.
King. But they started getting competition in the cat video / people getting hit in the nuts field with like Snapchat and Facebook video and all. So I could see the logic behind being like, okay, well,
who's getting hit in the nuts with cats?
I promise you it exists. I promise you there's a channel in here somewhere where a man just gets hit in the nuts with just cats being swung at his crotch. Now I don't know where I was going. Much like the first cat to ever be swung at that man's crotch on the channel, I don't know what's about to happen next.
That's how I feel every moment of the show, Joe.
That's it. Okay, I get that. Yeah, so I sort of see the logic behind what they tried to do. But I do think that in this case, unlocking that content is good for YouTube. I think those higher numbers are going to attract advertisers and make a lot more money than premium could have.
Better for the creators too.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, you know, Cobra Kai was a big splash hit, and it was critically acclaimed, and everybody that watched it really loved it. It made a ton of buzz, and you yourself were like, I still didn't subscribe, whether I didn't want to or I just didn't remember to or whatever, because it's YouTube and I don't associate that with something I have to subscribe to. I think just putting everything out ahead is going to be bigger and better for all of these shows.
And it sounds like they're taking the premium service and doing what more people that I know, Mara does this, is she has it because it has functions that she likes. You can download more things. You can have like automatic playing, you know, it resumes where you start, like, and that sounds like that's what they were doing. They're saying like maybe the way that they'll do it is if you're up in front of the paywall, they'll release it weekly, but if you buy it, if you have a premium subscription, then you can binge it. That's what it seems like they're doing, is they're turning premium into not so much premium content, but a premium experience. Yeah. And I think that's smart because investment-wise, it's way lower than making premium content. It's just allowing different functionality, which seems like it could be a much more reasonable ask for the consumer and a much more reasonable buy for YouTube.
Yeah, and I will say in terms of brand identity, just circling to that and add-on value, Amazon Prime is something that I have just because I have it, right? And then because I have it and it's right there, the app is available to me, I now do watch the content because it's just right there and available to me. Yeah. So I do think that was sort of smartly done.
Oh yeah, well I mean that's why they
part.
survived. I mean they had, not to say that Amazon didn't have growing pains, but like that's why they weathered some smaller growing pains, is because you got Prime anyway because you want toilet paper in an hour. Now here's some shows as well. And now the show side of it has grown to the point where you could go, you know what, I really want to watch those shows, and as an added bonus, I get that TP very quickly. So.
Yeah, and that they're one in the same homeland, but Homecoming, but pardon me, is quite good.
I was like, I do watch
on
Homeland
Amazon.
on Prime.
It's but then you could also get Homeland on Amazon Prime. And where do you stand? Have you drawn the line with some of these services?
I mean, in this regard, I feel exactly as the panel feels, that I didn't care how much premium content they put out. That wasn't going to make me buy the thing. I mean, every time I stop a video, it says, hey, do you want to subscribe to the premium? I'm like, no. I do not. Yeah, it's like I'm consistent in not doing that. So one thing, it is so funny that they make it seem like a choice to make their videos full of ads now. No, we chose to move. No, people weren't paying for these things, so now you have to get ad support.
Sure.
And I love press releases for that manner. But you know what? I just really feel like Google isn't using their powers right. Google knows everything about us. Every time you go search on Google, it should recommend a YouTube show that you should watch. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, we're headed that way anyway. It's Minority Report. You're on a run. I'm not on a run, but the average person's on a run, and they see 15 ads. I mean, like in the Ready Player One, they were talking about changing the Oasis to a place where 80% of your field of vision was ads.
Yeah.
We're headed that way, and I just feel like
there's
Google,
that Black Mirror episode too, where the ads are following them, right?
Yeah, ads that are particular to your situation, who you are, all this kind of jazz. So like, I think we're going that way, and I think that their ability to gather data should not be discounted. I mean,
I don't think
YouTube is not going down.
I don't think it's been discounted.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it past them to start making algorithm shows like, all right, you like cats, you like nuts. You know,
Cat Nuts! I'm so excited about season 2 of Cat Nuts.
Yeah. I think we're headed for that direction.
That's an evil genius idea. But Netflix is giving notes to their creators based on the algorithms, to their series creators.
I'm sure.
They are saying to them, if you do this, and this by the end of your episode, people will watch the next one. So they actually are giving those kinds of notes right now. That is first of all, I don't know, have you guys had this experience before where you're talking out loud as if I'm talking to Joe Starr right now about, say, Evangelion? And then I go on Facebook and there's some Evangelion stuff there. It was not done in the computer. It was done IRL.
Had that happen.
What the hell? Have you ever had that happen?
I have seen that, yeah.
Definitely had that.
Makes me nervous.
Pretty weird.
Yeah.
And the more particular it is, the weirder. It's like, if you go like, oh, yeah, Guns N' Roses, and you see an ad for roses, it's like, oh, well, Siri's not really listening or whatever. But when it's like, you know.
Welcome to the jungle!
Yeah, it's like, oh my God.
Welcome to your advertisement.
Yeah. Well, it's a bunch of Jumanji ads and albums from Guns N' Roses. They just try to play both sides.
So, I was talking to my brother, I think, about The Revenant. But it was like 6 months before it opened on the phone, and I was the one talking about it. He hangs up, and on his Facebook there's a bunch of ads and trailers for The Revenant. So forget it. Like,
and bear mauling
done.
videos.
They're life model decoys for every single one of us.
It's true. It's like the world's end.
Yeah, they're better than us too. We just have to accept it. Venom.
Venom!
Knock, knock. It's Eddie Brock with a rom-com. So this is via /home and everywhere. We all saw it. So the advertisements, do you guys remember the original advertisements for Venom that were making it look like, this
Dark
is
and
like,
edgy.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, they're like, no, we're dumb. Yeah. So we're going to roll all the way into that.
If you loved 1998.
Yeah. And they did this for the release of the Blu-ray, this ad that's like leaning into the bromance between Eddie and Venom, and it's more of his pet. I find, than his lover, but that's just me, is the relationship I feel in the movie. It's a boy and his symbiote. So they've recut this to be like a rom-com, which feels like a very Deadpool-like move, but also smart because it's playing into what people I think are responding to in Venom, which is the silliness. Do you think they're then going to double down on that moving forward with this character?
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. Like, get so weird.
Yeah, I mean...
Go ahead.
Oh,
After you.
Oh, it's an inherently weird character, and I think the odder you go with it, the better. The comics are... the most recent run of Venom comics have actually really leaned into the weird, like, almost romance between the two. Not like a physical romance, but more of like an emotional romance and dependence on each other, and...
that's cheating too.
Eddie, yeah. And it's like full on like Eddie Brock, like now that Eddie Brock has the symbiote back, like coming to terms with the fact that like he can hear the symbiote's thoughts about previous hosts and what, like how they were better than him and worse and different and like it's kind of fun and interesting. So I think, the weirder you go with this, the better. I don't think Venom has to be an outright like Deadpool-esque silly thing, but you can take it seriously, and you can lean into weird and bizarre and strange, play that very seriously, and still have the same impact and still have something that's very fun and enjoyable to watch.
I just want to just say I haven't seen this new trailer, but if it doesn't have a naked Eddie Brock laying on a bearskin rug made of symbiote, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
I don't want to disappoint you there, Ed.
We are thirst trap.
But yeah, they failed.
Yeah.
They failed you and the world. This movie's doing so well, Dan.
Yeah. Well, first of all, partially, we covered this on charting. One of the reasons that it is doing so well, particularly in China, is the marketing in China was completely different than the marketing here. And the marketing in China was all about Venom is a great boyfriend. It was all these cartoons of Venom like taking selfies and stuff.
Work.
It's pretty.
He's a good boyfriend, but I don't know if he's a great boyfriend.
Well, in China, he was your perfect boyfriend.
Like an Instagram account of the symbiote leading you to various sites, and it's just from the pictures, it's holding your hand.
But they were very cute ads. They obviously connected with people because that movie is now the #1 market in the world for Venom, China, more than the U.S.
Yeah.
So #1, I think they saw the success of that approach internationally. #2, I think that they are listening to what the people that did like the movie liked about it, which was it wasn't the and I can speak from my own personal experience. It wasn't the action. It wasn't the all of the wrestling around and Jello fighting each other. Like that was very generic, and I'd seen that before. It was that relationship.
Yeah.
It was Tom Hardy's performance. It was the relationship between Eddie and Venom. And smartly, I think they're realizing that if they're going to bring new people on board, or if they want to remind people about why they liked the movie, that's what it is.
Down.
So I hope this is a case of the studio, of Sony, realizing, #1, this is what worked about the movie. And then hopefully, as they are going to the inevitable sequel, taking that forward and making the sequel about that, because that's what worked in the movie, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, and why that movie did well. It was not the action, it was not the more generic comic book stuff, it was that performance and that relationship.
Oh yeah, that's the only thing that anybody liked about it. I mean, maybe there were some other things like Michelle, like trying to understand Michelle Williams' wig was a moment for me, but like definitely it was all about Tom Hardy and his bromance. Again, it feels more like a pet, but I don't want to, like, if Venom doesn't like that and that's okay, but I would say as a boyfriend, stop calling your man a loser so much. But then it becomes kind of playful. I don't know, it's their thing. It's not for me to judge.
Yeah, that's their
how they like to love each other.
Yeah, that's their relationship.
That's their journey. But I also think that the marketing for the Meg that Warner Brothers did, I thought was so smart, because it was playing into the idea that the Meg is ridiculous and it's this big dumb shark movie. The problem was it then didn't fulfill its promise.
No.
And Venom did give you a dumb movie. It fulfilled that promise.
Yeah, it's weird. The Meg and Venom both did not really deliver on the promises that their marketing made. It's
In opposite ways.
In opposite ways.
Yeah.
The Meg was sold as this like cheesy, fun shark movie, and it was very kind of, I thought, very
Too
self-serious and really didn't take advantage of what it could have done and probably should have done. And Venom was marketed as this edgy, dark action movie, and was actually much more of a weird, offbeat, kind of silly at times comedy.
Yeah.
And it's there's like two ships in the night.
Yeah.
They should have just switched marketing campaigns.
Yeah, moving forward, this is absolutely what they lean into for the second movie, because there is sort of a weird, like, Ripley xenomorph feel of a relationship between Venom and Eddie Brock in a way. Just in terms of that, like, just completely inhuman alien being weirdly sexually connected to this hero. I say lean into it, and if you can get conservatives to protest the release of a movie like we haven't seen since maybe Dogma,
I mean, I think this
because
is
a man dares love a
Symbiote.
non-humanoid alien. Like, that's awesome.
I think inventing the world's first body horror rom-com is
Yeah.
like an amazing. It's like a birth of a new genre.
I feel like that movie kicks off like 45 minutes in, and it's when he first hears Venom in his head, and it's like,
That's when it takes off.
It's that's when that movie becomes those moments are great, and if they can do that with the character that they introduced plus the character that they introduced at the end of the movie, that'll be weirdish.
Well, when I was watching, one last thing, as I was watching Upgrade, I was thinking of it as this is the Venom movie with no money.
Well, Upgrade is also,
True.
but Upgrade is tonally the Venom movie that they advertise.
Yeah.
Like Upgrade
Yes.
is very
I think so.
dark and has some great action sequences
better than
on no
Venom.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I liked Upgrade very, very much. And
that
I just
fight
thought
scene.
And he's so much like Tom Hardy in so many ways. The actor in
He looks
Upgrade,
almost
he
exactly
looks
like
like Tom Hardy, and he's got this thing in his head. I'm like, dude, am I in a weird parallel? Am I seeing both versions of the parallel
Venom.
universe
Yeah.
Venom movie? I'm like, so we're in a great world, guys. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we are. You got Upgrade and Venom. Also, Spider-Verse. As I mentioned earlier, you can watch our review right now. It's great. It's great, and it's getting well-deserved sequels and spin-offs already, which means Sony is feeling really good about it. So they have this and Venom now. Now, we don't know how this movie is going to do at the box office. Fingers crossed. I hope it does well. But they are working on an animated Spider-Women film that will focus on 3 generations of women with Spidey powers. Beck Smith is set to direct. This is all via Deadline. And one of the characters could very well be Spider-Gwen, who's we know is in Spider-Verse, and I don't see why it wouldn't be. Amy Pascal is going to produce, and Avi Arad, okay. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller will also be involved.
I mean, he has to be contractually.
Contractually.
Hopefully no one listens.
He also sounds like a Spider-Man character.
Avi
Avi
Arad.
Arad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He really does. Like,
Villain.
you can hear Stan inventing that villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, double A's.
Yeah.
But Phil Lord and Christopher Miller also said to be involved with Christina Steinberg. They are also doubling down on a sequel that will feature Miles Morales, which is great
Good.
because there's plenty more story there to tell. You guys haven't seen it yet.
No.
How high does this rank in terms of movies that you're anticipating that are coming up?
Well, when the embargo wall came down and my Twitter feed was flooded with glowing love for this movie, I just got super mad I'm not more of a nerd celebrity. You know what I mean? I was like super mad. I was like, my career sucks. I'm not part of this embargo. I suck. I need to step up my game, get my Q score up, so I can get one of these passes and see this damn movie. But other than those vicious feelings of jealousy, I'm heartened because recently I had to write a script that has to do with this stuff, like for a commercial or whatever, that has to do with the Spider-Verse. So I became like a Miles Morales expert, a Spider-Gwen expert, Spider-Man Noir expert, Spider-Ham expert. And I just think that this is fantastic that they're able to see the Spider-Man period that Sony specifically is able to see and capitalize on their stake in this. We talked about this last time I was on, about how Sony could carve out their own Spider-Verse, if you will. And they're doing it. And I'm just like Citizen Kane claps on that one.
Yeah.
I just love it. I love it. And I love the fact that people are accepting of the fact that the Spidey powers are a malleable, and they're a great power set to give to different types of people. And you can see the personality in the different people that have the different spider powers. Spider-Man, I'm going to get a bunch of hate for this, but Spider-Man's like a corny white dude who gets the powers, and and the brilliance of Spider-Man is this corny white dude with all this like responsibility and sad sack, and my aunt's wheat cakes, and I got to get to school. Well, what
Did you
if
say
there's
my aunt's wheat cake?
yeah. Okay. So that's how Spider-Man's powers are in that guy. A cool drummer chick, you know, who plays in a band, and she's going to school, and she didn't really take the spider stuff seriously at first, and then she learns that more responsibility. That's a great archetype. A cartoon pig that has those powers is great. A dude from the 30s who has this horrific. If you read Spider-Man Noir, his origin is horrific. His Uncle Ben is eaten by the Vulture. It's horrible. And that guy can become his own Spider-Man and have this dark broodingness with it, you know. It's just amazing how malleable the concept is, and I'm so glad that somebody besides me is going to make billions of dollars off of it, but I'll get to see it.
And not only that, but just the fact that I give props to Sony for having some faith in leaning into an animated feature.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it happens enough. I don't think studios
Outside of
believe
Pixar.
in that adults, and not just kids, but adults of all sorts will come in numbers to see an animated feature, which is a dumb thing to think if you look at Comic-Con or any human being like in the United States right now who just still loves their cartoons, you know? Like, anytime I see, you know, hey, we're going to do a live action adaptation of this or that, it's like, why? Just you've got the talent. Like, give us an animated feature. Really realize this idea. This Into the Spider-Verse, I don't think would have worked as live action, but there's something.
Oh, it definitely wouldn't have.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's just something. But there's
needs
something
the
about the
medium.
concept that like an animated movie gives you as an audience member like fewer hurdles to jump, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
you can jump into that reality
just
easier.
believe it, yeah.
Yeah. Like if Spirited Away was a live action film, I think it would be really difficult as an audience member to be like, wait, so her parents just started eating the stuff and now she's in a bathhouse for God's. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
But as an animated
Also, what
movie,
would
you
those
can
look
just
like? I have
jump
a
into the
number of
world.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's a natural destruction of so-called suspension of belief.
Yeah.
When you're with suspension of disbelief, when you're watching something that is obviously artificial, but artificial in an artistic, beautiful way.
They also, in this film in particular, and this isn't giving anything away, but stylistically, this is literally a comic book come to life. Like this is, you'll see when you see it, and it absolutely plays on that thematically as well. And so it needed it. It needed this medium specifically in order, especially there's a action sequence at the end that absolutely needed this medium in order to pull off. It just wouldn't, in live action, it would have looked like a mess.
Yeah.
I don't know why this keeps coming to mind. I mentioned this in our honest trailer commentary for Rocky IV, but there's a movie called Charlie Wilson's War. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays the CIA guy, and at the end of the movie, he's telling Tom Hanks the story about the Zen master. And every time something good happens or something bad happens, he says, "We'll see." And then like everything goes out, and the consequences roll out, and it's either worse than you thought or better than you thought. And I was thinking about that in relation to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was, you know, it came out, it like led off the summer that year, not a hit with critics, so underperformed at the box office, you know, no more Andrew Garfield movies. And at the time, you know, the whole Sinister Six thing crumbled. There's going to be like everything Spider-Man related, and then the hack and all that stuff with Sony, like it all crumbled. And everyone's just like, oh my God, like this is a disaster. Like Sony's key franchise is crumbled, it's disappeared. And what has come out of it? Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU, which has proven to be a huge hit for both Sony and Marvel and the MCU. Venom, which is now the 5th highest grosser of the year worldwide, over $800 million. And it's Into the Spider-Verse, which last time I looked had 31 reviews, 100% fresh. Who knows with the box office, but certainly this is going to be, you know, critically, perhaps the most massive critical hit of all of the Spider-Man films. And if you trace it all back, it all goes back to 4+ years ago. What everybody said was an absolute disaster for Sony now, paradoxically, could yield the biggest successes that this franchise has ever seen financially and critically, which is crazy.
I mean, you know, at your most sort of like bright-eyed and optimistic, it's the idea that like when your back's against the wall and there's adversity, that's when a creative can really roll up their sleeves and be like, okay, we got to figure out how to get out of this hole. Yeah.
I don't know that they would have been given the freedom to just go get weird with it if they were feeling really precious about owning those.
Yeah,
in
no,
the
if
same
the
way
train was
that-
still on the rails and it's like, we already built the rails, just like keep putting the trains on it. But I think this is a really, now I think we sort of see a bigger picture now that Into the Spider-Verse is coming out, now that Venom has come out, because I'm very guilty of this. I poke fun at the spider villain universe that they seem to be trying to build all the time. But, you know, I can't argue with how Venom performed, and I'm super pumped about Into the Spider-Verse. So I think Sony's done a really smart thing where the MCU isn't considered 616, right? Just the main prime comic universe 616. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not the exact same as the
but
comic
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like, Sony's gone, okay, Disney can have the 616 universe Spider-Man. Boom, you can have him, pay us some money for the license or whatever the exact deal is. We're gonna go this weird way with the Spider-Man, dare I say it, Dark Universe. And also our Into the Spider-Verse animated universe, because there's so many stories to tell. Spider-Gwen was a huge, massive hit in the comics. It took off. They did not expect it to be such a hit. But now you can spin her off. This is the only way I think an immediate Spider-Gwen movie works.
Oh, yeah.
In the MCU, there'd be like just a little, there's too much track you've got to lay before you get to Spider-Gwen.
But also, I think it's an important step in, I think, even Marvel realizing, this separate situation isn't bad. This isn't civil rights. There can actually be separate and equal.
Right.
And when Spider-Gwen is by herself, and Miles Morales is by himself in his own universe, his next movie would probably be as good as this one, maybe, because you get to see him by himself, because we've established that this is his world to be Spider-Man. Spider-Gwen having her own world to be Spider-Man. The Radioactive Spider-Gwen comic books, if anybody hasn't read them, they're great.
Yeah.
Her adventures are so great, and her world is so different. She's like, Daredevil is like a lawyer who works for the Hand, and Frank Castle's a detective that hates Spider-Gwen and is her enemy, and just all these weird little things you can do when you just turn the dial to that other universe. Small moves, Ellie. Contact.
Yeah.
You
We got to a contact quote. Okay.
And
Okay.
this movie actually is laying the groundwork for all of that, because it gives enough information to the audience, not too much, but enough, so that it can. Now you're curious to see what does that world look like.
Yeah, you're gonna be able to scratch so many just like fan request and fan favorite itches. Like if Spider-Woman is Gwen Stacy and Jessica Drew and like Mayday Parker, that's amazing. Like those are such cult favorite characters that would not get a live action film at this point. Maybe they'd cameo on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a minute. Again, no shade on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but Disney as a whole doesn't care a whole lot about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
It's sort of the cast off. You guys do whatever you want. But here, this is where you have an opportunity to give all of these really cool Spider-Verse characters a home, like a really healthy, viable home.
And they're also doing a sports thing, taking a player from another team. If I'm not mistaken, Joaquim Dos Santos has directed a few of the DC animated movies that are so excellent.
Yeah.
So they're just like, let's go ahead and get this free agent
Look,
from this other team and come play for us, because as we know, Marvel animation has been super trash for like years, unless you're like 11.
Yeah.
So now
great.
this is for like grown-ups. Maybe they'll spin up into other things that are more for grown-ups, tweens, teens.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends, because this is, again, it's not Marvel, it's Sony, and Sony only has the Spider-Verse. So that's where this
Why did you say
world
if
would
Marvel?
live.
It's kind of analogous to the situation where they're like, okay, we can't do live action Spider-Man as good as you, MCU. You have that one, but you obviously can't do animated Spider-Man as good as we can.
Yeah. So
And
we're
I
going to
love
bring
that.
in
Let's
one
play
of
to our
the.
But now
strengths.
that they have Venom, which is success, I certainly hope Spider-Verse is going to be a financial success. I really do.
I do too.
I don't know, if I'm honest, but I hope it is, because it deserves to be. Then the question becomes, how are those negotiations around how they are or are not going to use Tom Holland, because they might start to feel a little confident here, like maybe we don't need you. Marvel.
That would be a mistake.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be.
They've got a good thing going.
Yeah.
Leave Tom doing his
Just
Tom MCU
That's
stuff.
gonna melt your wax wings pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think you can.
Icarus.
Yes.
I think you can take your time. Like you can continue to, because it's going to be a Sinister Six thing. Even though it's not necessarily the traditional lineup, it'll be like Venom and Morbius and I don't know, Paste Pot Pete or something weird like that. But
You mean the
they've been
Trapster?
obsessed with Trapster. Yeah, they've been obsessed with the Sinister Six for ages now. That and the Aunt May movie, which now I want to be animated and to happen. Ooh.
Dan scoffed audibly.
So I think you can take. I think Tom Holland gets dropped in at some point, but I think they've proven to themselves that they can take their time, and it's not immediately necessary, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if they want to just like, here's Morbius and here's the Trapster, and
Morbius is up next.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. And then eventually they'll be like, now we'll play Tom in.
Yeah. But I think they've learned that they can take their time, and it's not necessary to jam Tom Holland into Venom 2, so that the symbiote's like, I'm leaving you for this handsome boy.
It's actually it's potentially a really good, because they have to be, first of all, he has to get strong enough that we can believe that he's going up against all of these different villains. And they have to be established enough that we care. It is an interesting, tricky part because Eddie or Venom, they're not necessarily villains.
We'll see.
They're anti-heroes.
We'll see.
We'll see. Well, there's anyway.
Anti-hero boyfriends.
More to come on that. But
Yep.
for now, Into the Spider-Verse, go see the movie. Check out our
Yes.
review. Movie fights this Thursday. Guys, it's the road to the championship. Clark Wolf versus Greg Alba versus Mark Andreyko. Winner gets title shot
Against that guy.
against this guy right here.
Boom.
Both.
That's
good
what's
shows.
happening. So
Yeah.
you should check that out. Joe, it's been good beveraging.
Cheers.
Good morning to you.
Have you drank
I
any
had
of
this much.
Did I just say drinking? First of
I
all,
had-
I hate
Yeah.
myself.
Roth is one of those. You've had that same bottle for like a week,
I've
I
had
think.
no. I'm a slow drinker. I am,
You
but don't hate yourself for saying drinking. Earlier, I was like a record scratch on what word was it? Like marked or something. You'll remember.
I get
Okay.
sent dictionary. I got sent dictionary links the other day to a word that
no.
apparently I got sent the dictionary definition of expand and expound. Apparently I misused one of them, so I just knew I couldn't get away with drinking unless I myself pointed it
Are you
out.
drinking it? You could have just gone southern on us.
Well, no, the drinking. If I may.
The past. You were referring to the past tense.
Yes, this drinking in a southern accent
Is
drinking.
present tense.
Yes,
Yeah.
drinking is a
You did.
incorrect
Yeah.
past tense.
You're right. I mixed my tenses in my southern accent, so I
Yeah.
apologize for that. But I'm going to drink this right now, and we will see you tomorrow.